This is going to be a quick update on the grades for the British soap operas because I don't have a lot of time. So we're going to go quickly through the bottoms, that being Hollyoaks at the very bottom, which I gave a grade of an F plus to, which honestly, putting a plus on an F is like putting lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig, it's still crappy, and Hollyoaks is still crappy. I think Hollyoaks can be summed up in 3 words. Lucy Allan sucks. Lucy Allan sucks. That's really what it comes down to. Every single character on this show right now is just a caricature, and it's hard to care about any of them. Warren's always dealing with his health issues, dealing with his mother, trying to interfere with Mercedes and Felix's relationship, but I don't care. It's really bad when they have Julia in a cancer story, and it's hard to care about her and Perry because of the on and off again relationship that seems like it's been going on for 2 years now. It seems like it's been 2 years of these two just off and on. I don't know if it's been that long, but it feels like it has been. Charlie and all the other younger kids, Charlie and Leah and the drugs, hard to care about all those as well. I mean, I guess I get that Felix wants to start this youth club to help out the younger characters, which I appreciate and I think is a good touch for the story because the younger characters have been going through it, but I just don't know how to care about any of the stories going on this show. Ethan jealous of Warren and Sienna and their kids and their relationship. I think the show needs to find a better balance because the stories that have been on in the past 2 weeks, the Warren stuff, the Juliet and Perry stuff, the Charlie, Leah, and younger set, Mercedes and Felix, none of it's working, and it's hard to care about any of it. So an F plus for Hollyoaks. And then we move on over to Emmerdale, which is pretty much similar to Hollyoaks. Nothing changed much from when I did this 2 weeks ago for the beginning of February. This is, I'm grading this from February 20th to March 3rd. I complain a lot about the Dingles, but the problem with this show is that the week of February 20th to 24th, the Dingles weren't on a lot. And the show still sucked. And why is that? Because the show is boring. Emmerdale is a very boring show. And the problem with the characters not in the Dingle or Dingle adjacent stories is that they kind of just go in circles. There's no real rhyme or reason to them. Marcus and Ethan break up. Marcus ends up cheating on Ethan when Ethan wants to get back together. It was kind of out of left field. They just kind of made Marcus look like an ass, I guess, before leaving the show. The Samson personality change from just a year ago when he was just this good kid, and now he's not just acting out, he's becoming like a villain out of nowhere just because somebody had his baby. That makes a total 180 in the friggin' character of Samson. That's just bad writing there. That you make a plot completely change a character's personality. I'm talking night and day for Samson here. And I like the character of Naomi. I do feel like the character of Naomi can bring a lot to the show. I feel like she gets a hate from a certain segment of the audience. The problem with the character of Naomi, I do think she could bring a lot, but the past few months they just put her from story to story to story. This new story with her dating or coming on to Don's ex Alex, who everybody else knows is not a good dude. I don't know if I like that. The character of Gabby's just been a horn dog for the past couple of months now, or at least the past month, coming onto the Nikki character, wanting to fire him so that they can be together and start sleeping together, because I feel like the show tries to make everyone unlikable, maybe? I don't know. All these characters are just going in circles. The saving grace for the show, though, was the Paddy storyline. Because Paddy being depressed and wanting to kill himself, I felt like they did a very good job with this because it wasn't melodramatic. It came off very realistic, which I appreciated. When a person is down bad and they feel like the only thing they can do is off themselves, so that their shitty life can be over. And it was very true to Paddy's character, who's always felt pathetic and acted pathetic. I just thought that the show did a really good job with Paddy's character here, and making his wanting to off himself very realistic, the suicide note, but also him not being able to pull the trigger and go through with it. It's real. A lot of people make a lot of attempts. Some of them don't really want to kill themselves, but they feel like that's the only way to go. And I thought that that's what they did with Paddy here, and they did a really good job with that. So that's the only reason I didn't drop Emmerdale's grade. The show's still not good enough for me to up Emmerdale's grade. I still gave it a D, just like 2 weeks ago, because it's a very D show. It's very boring, and a lot of the characters just go in circles or are just put in from story to story with no real rhyme or reason. But the Paddy stuff, they did a good job with. Next, we go on to Coronation Street, which faltered a bit to me. Obviously, the Stephen story continues to be the dark humor, the diabolical humor of it all is still one of the best parts of the show. I think it's because I've never seen a show do a serial killer that is just a bumbling fool and that just kind of falls and struggles every step of the way. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no plan to it. And it works because of that. I guess maybe much like Paddy's depression on Emmerdale, there's some sort of realism to this. Obviously, there's serial killers that plot every step of the way and try and outsmart the police every step of the way. But then there are others that have killed in desperation, and that's where Stephen falls into this. But lately, he's just been trying to take over Underworld, basically. Last time I talked about him drugging Carla with LSD to try and make her have a mental break. And while she's gone, he tries to take a vote to have Carla basically voted out, having no confidence in her by the staff. That doesn't work. Carla finds out and kicks him out. But because of a client having a falling out, she needs to bring Stephen back to the company to help with that. And so she does. But Stephen will only come back if he becomes second in command. Carla gives in to that. But then at a press conference, he starts seeing everybody in the press as the people he's killed. Starts seeing their faces. Has a total breakdown. Even at his room, starts really falling apart. Coronation Street really did a lot of effects with this scene. A little too much, probably. And yet, the humor of it all, the dark humor of it all, still continued because of that panic attack or whatever Stephen was having. So it was entertaining. Now, unfortunately, the rest of the show has its faults. The biggest fault I have with Coronation, and it's the reason I dropped the grade a little bit, is because Darian, the refugee, who they had the whole refugee story and everybody being racist. Well, not everybody, but the characters of Griff and Max being racist towards Darian and other refugees, but they never decided to actually flesh out the refugee as a character. So it came off as the show talking the talk, but not walking the walk, if you know what I mean. Acting woke, but not actually fleshing out the character, and he's just a token. And now he just finds a friend and leaves the show, and it's just like, okay, well, that Max and Griff story is over, so we talked the talk, but now Darian's going to go. I didn't like that at all. And Max is in prison being bullied and beaten on. Well, not prison, I guess juvie. I don't know what they call it in Britain. Juvie here. Yeah, not really feeling all of that at all. So I dropped Coronation Street to a C-. I will say, though, the stalking story, Justin stalking Daisy, is good, too. I like the way they've gone with that, where Daisy's tried to be nice about it and then tried to be threatening about it, and Justin's kind of just getting worse and worse and not wanting to leave her alone. So I'm sure that will continue to escalate. And then Amy and Aaron started to get friendly and flirty, and the two actually did have some good chemistry. But then they get drunk together, and this was the Friday cliffhanger where they get so drunk that Amy passes out while they're fooling around. but Erin keeps going. So I guess we're gonna have this dark turn in the story of rape, and there will be lots of questions about this story because both of them are drunk, but it is still a crime if Erin rapes her here. So we'll see how Coronation handles that story. I'm surprised they did it the way they did. The fallout could be good, but it could also be very bad. So we'll see how Coronation writes that. I dropped Corey down to a C- from a C, mostly because of the Darian stuff and the just making him a token while they're trying to actually seem like they're doing this progressive story. But I do still think Coronation Street has some enjoyable stuff. C- is still passing, even though barely. The Steven stuff is very entertaining, and they have some potential with this Amy and Aaron stuff, and the Justin Stalking story. So it could get better. It could go more up from here. But at number 1, for British soap operas anyway, the best grade was still EastEnders. Still a lot of great stuff going on. There's one thing I'm questionable about, and that is the stunt of the flash forward, where they had the episode where they just, I think it was the anniversary, where they flash forwarded to Christmas for the end of the episode to show Stacy, Suki, Linda, Sharon, Denise, and Kathy, and a dead body. This was after those 6 were all hanging out together, getting drunk. A lot of speculation that the easy target would be Nish, if they're going to escalate that character more and more, which they already are. I could easily see Nish dying, but that would kind of be boring. And I don't want Nish to die this soon, honestly. He has not been on the show that long. There's so many different ways you could go with him. I don't think that's the right way to kill him off on Christmas. It also seemed like Sharon was going to be getting married around Christmas, as she was in a wedding dress. We saw Keanu kissing Sharon, and they even did it in the bathroom. But then Sharon found out about Keanu sleeping with Sam and broke up with him. And then later Sharon was trying to get back with Keanu when he was out kissing Chelsea, and he didn't tell her about that either. But then that came out and they fought again. So I guess maybe they're teasing that it's going to be Keanu and Sharon getting married at Christmas. I think that would be the interesting way to go, because we'll see how Phil, Sam, others handle that situation. I guess my problem with the flash forward is that it's so far in advance that I think it could keep the show from being too exciting at certain points the rest of this year. Because I feel like they're going to spin their wheels at some point to try and bide their time until Christmas to get to that story. And I'm sure there'll be many twists and turns around that story, because we see Denise with a broken wine bottle, making it seem like maybe she did something, or there's blood all over Stacy, maybe she did something. So we'll see how that all turns out. I get it. It's them trying to hype up their Christmas episode, try and make EastEnders relevant on Christmas again after John sent this show into a ratings nightmare. So I get the stunt. I just don't like that it's so far ahead. We've seen other soaps do this in different, well, one in a different way. Days of Our Lives did this in America, where it was a flash forward completely. They just skipped a year and started over from a year in the future. That sucked. And then Hollyoaks also did a flash forward a year in the future, similar to this, at a New Year's Eve. I think they did just like a couple years ago. That was a failure as well. They didn't build that up at all. It's a hard thing to do. So I don't know if EastEnders is going to be able to build that up well enough for my liking, but we'll see. The other big stories, of course, was Ravi and Denise possibly continuing their affair. Ravi gets a hotel room for them. Denise is questioning if she should go. That turns even worse when Jack finds the hotel key in her bag. She was lying about where she was going to Jack and Chelsea. They both found out about that. She continued to lie and just say she wanted some alone time. She needs some time to herself. But then she goes to Ravi. They start to fool around, but it doesn't go far because she stops and goes back home to Jack. I want to shout out Sunny O in the comments, who was correct in pointing out that I said I thought Ravi and Denise already slept together. I was trying to read between the lines in some of their scenes. It's a problem because I've watched so many American soap operas that they do so much stuff off screen that I just assumed that maybe EastEnders did that as well. But Ravi and Denise have not slept together, and she stopped them from sleeping together here. She goes back to her marriage, which is still falling apart, with Jack. Maybe Jack will end up dead on Christmas. Fingers crossed. I would enjoy that. The other big story is Nish and Suki. That toxic relationship gets worse and worse. Nish is jealous of Suki's friendship with Mitch and wants Ravi to follow Mitch around and see if he's trying to have an affair with Suki. This is all before the day of Suki and Nish's wedding blessing. I did like all of the culture that went into their wedding thing, and I also like that even Suki had this confrontation beforehand that Vinny overheard. Of course, Vinny's so dumb that he couldn't put two and two together, that when Eve's talking about Suki having an affair, it's that those two having an affair together. He just thinks Suki's having an affair with some man. So Vinny will be an interesting point of this story to see what he does with that information. Suki goes through with this wedding blessing with Nish, but afterwards sneaks away to be with Eve and says she was wrong to deny her feelings for Eve. So it's going to be interesting to see that affair continue. It seems like history is going to repeat itself with Nish and Suki, because Nish was in prison for killing someone he thought Suki was having an affair with. Lastly, we had the sad story of Whitney and Zach losing the baby. While they were going to lose the baby, Whitney decided to terminate it because of the baby being born with a condition and wasn't going to survive anyway. I like that this was handled so well between the two characters, being very adult about this, very mature, but it was very sad and very hard to watch, honestly. But they did a good job with that story for sure. So EastEnders is still good soap opera. I gave it a B again. It's a very solid B. The best part was that the Lily story was nowhere to be seen these last 2 weeks, because that's the weakest story on the show. So everything else is doing really well. We'll see what happens with this flash forward. I'm concerned, honestly, but I'm also interested to see how they try and pull it off.